That's fine. Yeah, got it.
So I am so relieved to say that we are online with a very much alive and well Alan Broderick. You were probably all, I'm apologizing for on the end of endless messages from me and a whole lot of the community, sending messages with pictures of Alan, last known position of Alan, feedback from people we knew out on the search in and around Knysna and Okomsapat. It was an alert sense of stress, I think, for most of us as riders, knowing that we could so easily have been in exactly the same predicament. I personally am 55. I've got kids. I have a busy life. When I go on holiday, I'm the first guy to say, babe, drop me off up in the mountains. I'll see you at lunch in 4 hours. I need some riding time. We know how cathartic and wonderful some endorphin time on holiday is to kick off your holiday. Alan's down from Joburg. He's gone to Plett for the holidays, been dropped off on the Komsapat, and the next thing, he goes through a life-changing experience. So I firstly want to say it's 24 hours since he was found. Miraculously, incredibly, Duran, the helicopter pilot, his spotter, who somehow managed to see into a forest where we'll post pictures. It's impenetrable. It's a horror zone. I've ridden 27 Knysna mountain bike races. Every year I'm exhausted from riding Komsapat too hard and then hitting those little slippery, rocky sections through the mountain, through the forest, over those little mossy riverbeds. Been there, done that, and often thought to myself, wow, so deep, so silent, so empty, so magnificent. The sound of Knysna luries. It's a magical place, but in certain times it can turn into a hell zone. So here we are with Alan, who's been found. We're going to talk through his ordeal, and I first want to start saying, just 24 hours later, you'd be excused for being in a bed somewhere in recovery, being fed through a straw with ice cream and milkshakes. But here you are, back on your feet, talking to us as a media, and we really appreciate it. Alan, thank you for joining us. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I mean, it's a pleasure, really. We've actually just got back from the forest looking for my bike. So the rangers, I took the rangers on a bit of a recce this morning to show them the last known point that I knew I was at exactly, which is probably about 2 kilometers from where my bike is, but we still couldn't see it.
And that's with a bunch of trained individuals in the forest, in the place, within a small radius, trying to find a bicycle, and you couldn't find that, let alone trying to find a 90-kilogram human in thousands of kilometers of dense indigenous forest.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, to me, it's more of a human story. You know, the people who got involved, the people who gave freely of their time, the people who gave freely of their expertise, you know, who got involved in the whole search and rescue effort, which would probably have been a search and recovery today.
Yeah, it would have been. I mean, I started asking questions. We all probably asked the question: how long can a person go without food, perhaps without clean water, sleeping out in the open? I mean, the first night when the family and everybody gave up the search, we'd all been on the edge of our seats the whole day on the weekend, on Sunday. I had personal friends. My cousin James was on the search. He lives in that forest, trains in that forest, been there his whole life, and he said, this is not looking great. And then the next day, and then I got a message from someone else saying my mate's taking his chopper up. And I was like, geez, what are you going to see from a chopper? Yeah, I mean, it's absolute heroes. Everyone from NSRI, the Fire and Rescue, ER24. Yeah, tell us a bit about that and then tell us how it happened.
Yeah, so, you know, and a lot of volunteers got involved in their own individual capacity. So not under the flag of any kind of search and rescue organization, but so everybody who got involved was amazing. You know, and like you say, including pretty much everybody you just spoke about there. And I can tell you one thing, there's nothing as devastating as seeing a helicopter fly over, thinking it's seen you, and then it leaves you. So that's
like those famous stories out at sea where a big ship comes past or a plane flies, and you know, the guy's on the island with his base basketball, whatever it was, waving and saying, doing his happy dance, and then hearing the drone go off into the distance.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, so Saturday night, there was nothing. I didn't expect anything. I mean, the way it all transpired is somehow I ended up on the incorrect path and the path ran out. And when the path ran out, I knew, I'm experienced enough to know that when the situation is turning, and I knew that the situation at that point was now critical. So my intention at that stage was to cast a radius of about 20 meters, just to see if I could cut the path again and try and figure out why it had run out. And then if I couldn't find the path, the intention was to get back on my bike and come home.
Backtrack,
20 meters. Oh, 20 meters in most people's language is nothing, but within about 10 or 15 meters in that thickness, I was lost and embarrassed to admit it. I've never been lost in my life. I've done a whole lot of mountain biking. I've done all the events that people dream of, and I'm blessed and happy to have done those.
Like what sort of thing? Give us a little bit of your cycling CV. I know you're a very experienced rider.
Yeah, so I mix it between mountain biking and road biking. The mountain biking, I've done the Joburg to see, Sani to see, Bergenbush, Cape Epic, you name it, and so very, very extensively. And then obviously a whole lot of riding that's not event related. And then
I mean, Cape Epic, if you can handle 8 days of 100 Ks a day, and
yes.
Getting lost in the forest shouldn't seem like a big issue, but being lost within 20 meters, that must be frightening.
It was. And even when I went out with the rangers this morning, and they said they didn't mind quoting me, they said that they themselves have gone astray in the forest. But obviously they have the legacy of the experience to lean on. And there were 1 or 2 points today, even when, the guys turned around and had to think very hard about where the car was.
Sure. So, you obviously remember that story ever. I don't know.
Yeah, precies, yeah. So no, it was so that's how it happened. I left at 11:30 on Saturday, and I've also ridden the route before, and so it's still, unfortunately, in my mind, a bit of a mystery as to how the path ran out or how I ended up on the path. But I know these things happen, and that's why I was so careful at the end, and I didn't cast more than 20 meters,
Sure.
And then turned around to come back to my bike and didn't know where it was. So Saturday.
Oh, what a feeling! What a sense of desperation it must have been.
Yeah, well, particularly because my bike had my sustenance on it. It had my liquids. I had an energy bar. It's only a 26K ride, Beatrice the Brunt, and then I was going to ride back from Garden of Eden on the road. So it would have only been about 40 Ks or whatever.
Sure.
That's why I had to find it. So I found the bike, and now realized that I was thoroughly lost. And then just started moving out incrementally, just trying to increase the radius slightly, but to maintain.
So you just said you found the bike. Did you find the bike? Did you say?
Not today, but on the Saturday when.
That's what I mean. You did find it. Okay.
So on the Saturday, the first time I lost it, that was quite scary. And then I managed to find it about an hour and a half later, very, very intense bushwhacking. And then I was still trying to cut a path, but keeping my bike with me. And there was a point where I had to leave it because the bike couldn't go where I was going.
Sure.
So I left the bike on Saturday afternoon and moved out a bit further, thinking, well, I'm going to come back to it and, get the stuff that I need. But by that stage, I'd taken the liquids off. So even if I didn't get back to my bike, at least I knew I had a bit of liquid to get to the river. And then the bike went AWOL again. Or should I say I went AWOL again. Then I spent about another hour looking for it, still thinking I was going to ride out of there, And then Saturday night settled down for the evening, realizing that, I'm not going to achieve anything more. It was dark, and just slept on the floor, slept on the forest floor, and bitterly cold. I
want to ask, what were you wearing at this stage? What did you set out with wearing? 11 o'clock in the middle of the day in December, you're probably going to be in short sleeves and baggies.
100%.
Sure.
So so also, very little protection from the undergrowth and things like that.
Did you have your helmet on still, or did you leave that behind?
Never took it off. I knew I needed it because,
Good idea, yeah.
you know, even trying to walk through 2 or 3 feet of water in a rocky riverbed with cycling shoes on is not possible. So, you know, a lot of the time I was leopard crawling along the river to try and make progress. And then the trees had fallen across the river so perfectly that in my mind, a beaver had built a dam there. And then there was only one option, was go on the left bank or the right bank. And on the bank, it was so dense, I still had to leopard crawl under the vegetation to get around that point in the river.
Sure.
And my whole thinking was that I know the rivers in this neck of the woods flow east towards the sea. And this particular river was flowing east-west. And so I knew if I followed it, you know, typical Bear Grylls pattern, you're going to find a settlement, you're going to find a bridge, you're going to find a road, you're going to find something, even a path. And the mountain bike literature said that there was one point at which the path crossed the river. So that was instrumental in my decision to follow the river. The only thing is I was on the wrong river. So
it's a little stream that, and did it last? Was it a major river? Because you were found on a river. Was it the same river you were found on?
Yeah, so it was the Bitu River.
Okay.
So I was running parallel to Pietersebrand, but not on Pietersebrand.
And how close to Pietersebrand at any point? Close.
So on Saturday night, I was probably a maximum of 2.5 kilometers from Pietersebrand. Okay. And I know that because I've got a Garmin, I've got a satellite tracker on my bike, and that's the other reason I had to find my bike while I was still hiking, not after the event, obviously.
Yeah.
And then I looked at my Garmin but it's an old one, you know. It's I think it came out just after Noah, you know, or just after the Rinderpest, and you've got to plug it into a USB port to get the data.
Yeah.
So, but I could see on the screen that I'd done 8.8 Ks, and I knew the first 5.5 of that was Jeep Trail. So I knew that I'd walk 3 Ks through the bush, and that doesn't mean 3 Ks in a straight line, because the river's meanders. Yeah, and you can't predict which way the river's going to go. You just stick to it, because it was now my only chance of being spotted. It was the only like clear area. And then the whole period, it was cold and wet, and I think that's the number plate in George, CAW.
Yeah, exactly.
It was bitter.
Great, you got your sense of humor back. Yeah.
It was bitter, man, Paul. It was difficult to describe. So in the evenings, I would memorize the layout of my little campsite, and I just made a bed bed in inverted commas out of yellowwood leaves, and then put a whole bunch of yellowwood leaves next to the bed to pull over when the cold got too much. But every 30 to 45 minutes, I had to get up and do squats and push-ups and run on the spot, just to get my temperature up, because I was scared I wouldn't wake up again if I didn't at least do that.
And I mean, you're a big unit. You're 90 kilos. I think you're like 190 or more.
Yeah, so probably now about 90, but before the event, probably about 90. Yeah.
And you're a big guy, 190 height, and so you're not small to get through the bushes. And are you in really good shape? Were you super fit at this stage?
Yeah, so you know, I'm blessed with that. With the fitness side of things, and obviously it comes with a lot of hard work. Any cyclist will tell you that. Never gets easier. You just get faster, you know.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
And yeah, so during the evenings, it was a case of survive. And then I got to know the forest sounds so well, man. I didn't necessarily know what creature it was coming from, but I knew when I heard a particular sound that the forest was about half an hour away from being possible in terms of vision. So as soon as I reached that point, I'd get up probably about 5 in the morning and start walking. Obviously without my bike this time, because on Saturday evening I had a fond farewell to my bike, realizing that it's not going where I'm going, or it couldn't go where I'm going. I couldn't get it through all that. And yeah, so then Sunday headed down a ravine across the river and up the other side of the ravine, looking for a high spot to be spotted. But it was so impassable, and when I got to the top of the ravine on the other side, it was a false horizon, so there was just more ravines. As far, you know.
No, it's like a bad dream.
Yeah, I gave up on plan A and went to plan B, and I planned everything in minute detail on Saturday evening, lying there in the forest, And plan B was, okay, follow the river. It's going to head east, and you're going to find some cutting. But in my mind, the big thing being the part where the mountain
Road
bike
cross.
trail,
Yeah.
which I never found. So I must tell Bear Grylls it's a load of crap.
Bear's just a TV show. Mike Horn is the guy you should have been with.
Yeah, exactly.
So just a quick one on. So at this stage, you don't think, oh my God, I could die here. You're just like, inconvenience. Hope my family's not too pissed off with me. I'll be home soon. Was that a snake? Was that a buck? You weren't starting to think, can I eat a snake? Am I going to live?
No, and of course, no, not at all. Because so the kind of energy I needed was that slow release stuff, and I've got a lot of that around my waist. So I wasn't worried about food. I was just worried about liquid, and that's the other reason I stayed by the river. Food was not an issue to me at all. I drank the river water. So I forgot where we were. Okay, so it's Sunday, and I'd gone up and down the ravine, no joy.
Yeah, you were saying goodbye to your bike. You had your moment with your bike.
Yeah, that was Sunday morning. I had my moment and said goodbye, and headed out on my own without the bike.
Sounds like you left it in a place no one could ever find. Couldn't you have left it on top of that little false horizon or in the river or something?
No, it didn't come with me to the false horizon.
Okay.
When I left on Sunday morning for the solution hike, the bike stayed.
Yeah.
And so I got back to the river, and then it's a case of groveling along the river easterly, hoping to find some kind of sign,
Drinking water. You've still got your water bottle with you, so you're drinking water out of the river?
I've got 2 water bottles, so I would decant them. The one I would fill with very fast flowing water, and then the other one wasn't necessarily very fast flowing water, but it was cleaner than the stagnant water that I went through. So I had a backup bottle, and I had those 2 bottles with me all the way until Monday morning. One slipped out my pocket and went drifting down the river.
Oh, shit.
But I still had the one, so I was fine from that point of view. And then it was just in terms of the kind of fear. There were two points in the 3-day episode where fear crept in, and I had no choice but to squash it because it was unproductive. The adrenaline just pumps. You run around blindly looking for a path that may or may not be there, and it's basically just blind panic for a couple of minutes. And then I had to squash it because it wasn't achieving anything. So, and then from an emotional point of view, the main thing, the main thing that drove me was I couldn't let my family go to bed at night not knowing what had happened. It's just the worst nightmare. And from that point of view, I think in some ways my family had a tougher 3 days than I did, because they knew all they had was possibilities. They didn't know, like I knew, that I was fine, that I wasn't injured, and that I was trying to find my way out. And that's the thing that scared me the most, is thinking about my family going to bed wondering where I was.
Yeah.
And if you've got little children, you'll know what that feels like. And
Dad's
my wife,
indestructible. Dad is everything. Dad needs to be alive. No, it's horrible.
And my wife as well, So that's what drove me, was the fear that my wife and my sisters and my children would go to bed at night, not knowing ever what happened to Dad. And that story had to be told. And actually, it's got a funny little anecdote on Monday morning, because I woke up again and it was cold and wet and raining and windy, and I just stood up and shouted at the trees and said, "You're not keeping the story to yourself. I'm telling the story."
Oh, wow.
Told the trees to.
Oh, lekker. So storytelling kept you alive. Well, thank God we get to hear the story first. Just quick one on your, so by now you haven't heard a helicopter yet.
Yes.
You're still nutritionally okay. You say you weren't feeling super hungry or anything. So and I don't know what you do for a business, but it sounds like you were quite pragmatic under pressure.
Yeah, so I mean that it's just the way I was born, really. So I've got a very analytical function. I model data in the IT world and consult on various aspects of the IT business. I'm at Sun International at the moment, consulting for them.
Okay.
And yeah, so my profession is to make sense of disorder, try and make some order out of disorder. And that's exactly what I did. And somebody asked me, I can't remember who I was speaking to, about how I got through it. And the simple answer is squash the emotion and think. There was no room for emotion other than the one that drove me, which was worrying about my family not knowing what had happened. And,
well, I mean, Alan, you do obviously, you've probably heard since, but I don't know if you ever were before, of how long it took them to find or not find the forest elephant, and the fact that it took 7 years to find that helicopter that crashed there, a whole helicopter.
Yeah, my wife told me that story. One of the rangers shared it with her. But I knew that if I was going to get seen, I had to make myself seen. It wasn't going to happen by accident. And then Sunday evening, so I've been going down the river, or groveling down the river in the bush for the whole day. You can be 20 meters off the bank of the river, just spending a penny or getting your bed ready or whatever.
And the heli comes past,
The helicopter comes past, and I didn't get to the river the first time, and then it turned around and came back. So I think I would have beaten a steroid-induced Ben Johnson to the river. And I got there probably in about, while I'd moved closer, and then I waved, and I sat on a rock in the middle of the river, and I waved, and I thought, hey, they've seen me.
I'm saved.
It's going to be okay. And then they flew away. They hadn't seen me. But so that's not a criticism. That's just the kind of recounting that devastating feeling. It's just,
which we all read about. We all read about that, the boat flying past, the plane that flies over the desert island. So wow, I can't imagine what that must have felt like. Yeah,
devastating. And the fullness of the story will unfold as I hear the anecdotes from the people who were involved in the rescue service. And
did you not think then this is the end? I've now just been sent to my death. They could call us over. They'll say they were here and I'm not here.
So on Monday, when I woke up and it was so cold and wet, and I'd missed, and the helicopter had flown over on Sunday and I'd missed it, I thought they might not come back because of the weather. The clouds were low, it was gusty, it was windy. And at that point, I thought, you know what, this could actually be it. But then I had to squash that in pursuit of making myself visible, because the driving, that was contradictory to the driving force of the whole operation, which was not to let my family go to bed wondering what had happened. But yeah, to be honest with you, there were times when I thought I was done and dusted. I just couldn't entertain it.
Was that a peaceful feeling in any way, or a completely scary feeling?
Predominantly scary.
I'm sure.
Predominantly scary. I would imagine that you would reach a point where you just accept it, like a lamb to the slaughter. I don't know if you've seen a lamb to the slaughter. They just accept their fate. And I think I potentially would have reached that point, but certainly not while I was breathing.
Yeah.
And
now, you haven't mentioned a cell phone. When did you have and not have a cell phone?
So I had my cell phone. It was with me, but there's no signal.
Whatsoever. Okay. No matter how high you are. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the reasons I headed for higher ground as well. Now that you remind me, was to get a signal. But then my battery was gone. So my phone was dead. It was useless, except it had lenses. So I knew I could start a fire if there was sun. And obviously smoke is one of the best signals you can give to a searcher. And flipping phone fell out my pocket in the river. So
gone.
I didn't even gone.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh.
So one of the most annoying things is when I phoned the insurance company, I think I only got around to phoning them yesterday evening. The lady at the end of the line said to me, tell me, have you had this situation occur before where you just lose your stuff?
Oh, no.
Yeah. So,
Like you might be a druggie or something weird.
more like
Jeez.
I'm pushing my luck, and because ultimately what ended up in the river was my glasses.
Oh, how's your sight without your glasses?
The far sight is cool. The close sight is no good.
So
Sorry,
starting a fire in a very tiny spot might have been a challenge, especially in the wet with no dry.
Yeah,
bush.
but I tell you what, if there had been sun, I would have got some smoke going. But I also tried the stick thing, and the forest is just so damp, and moldy, and the wood is rotten, and the forest floor stinks.
Look, we all know that Bear Grylls has got a guy with a firelighter with a camera.
Yeah, and a whole camera crew behind him, as you're naked and afraid, And
yeah, exactly.
I promise you,
You always reach over for a bar one or a cold cool drink.
Exactly. I didn't have any doctors or people following me.
Sure.
And
speaking of naked and afraid, which they did in game reserves and things, did you see any wildlife that was moderately concerning or tasteful looking?
No. So, Paul, that's the weird thing. I didn't see a single mammal. I saw signs of mammals, and I actually also discovered that the baboons like to sleep in the areas that I first picked out in the evening.
Oh, really?
Because
so we're not that far removed from each other.
No, not at all. About 99.8%. Yeah. So I would find a spot in the evenings, and then I would walk up there, and there was just baboon scat everywhere. So I couldn't sleep there, because I didn't want to sleep on their nesting bed.
No, it stinks, eh?
Yeah, but not as bad as the river and the river floor. And that's not.
Oh, you said the river was a bit manky. Now you haven't talked about leeches and ticks yet.
Oh yeah, so I mean the leeches and ticks had a field day, if you'll excuse the pun. Even this morning, I had to. So they're still crawling around on me. Not to be too graphic, because I think I've got all of them.
Sure.
And then I pulled one out that had latched itself into a blood blister on my foot this morning.
Oh, even in your feet, inside your shoes, or did you take your shoes off?
Only at the end when the helicopter came.
Yeah.
And yeah, so ticks are plenty, leeches, spiders, geez, like I'm not even sure I've seen those colors in nature, let alone those insects. And so millions of insects, not a single mammal. That's how desolate it was, and not a single sign of human evidence. You're always going to find a stompy, a bottle, a can, a piece of plastic, a piece of paper, some kind of rubbish where humans been. Nothing. Absolutely
so
nothing.
You were just in a completely uninhabited part of the forest, and there was not a sign of anywhere to get out. I mean, that's like hell.
That's exactly what it was. Exactly what it was. And so then Sunday night, the helicopters buzzed me again, but didn't see me. And this time I tried to make myself as visible as possible. So please, again, it's not a criticism of the helicopters. If you see where I was, you'll understand why.
No, we've seen the pictures, and we're going to share them here when we share this podcast conversation. It's impossible. How you were found is still beyond imagination.
Oh, so that was Sunday, and then Monday morning got up again, and I just.
How much sleep did you get in the night?
Very little. I think I related to you about how I had to get up every kind of half hour to 45 minutes.
Was that Sunday night and Monday night?
That was Saturday night,
Saturday night and Sunday night, yeah.
To try and generate a bit of body warmth,
Sure.
Yeah. So, and then Monday, woke up cold, wet, windy, rainy, and to me, low clouds, so the helicopters couldn't fly. So I just got going again at first light, put my bike tools in my pockets and traipsed off, my 2 bottles of water. And then Monday, around about 2:00 in the afternoon, it cleared up. I must have walked about 10 hours every day, and walk not being the operative word. Just kind of groveling and crawling and bushwhacking and
falling and must have been horrible. I mean, you and I chatted earlier, and I saw the state of your arms and all the grazes, and I can quite understand you not coming on camera for this conversation because, I mean, you said even your beard turned white. I mean, you've been through some mega stress. You're sounding calm and relaxed, but you went through hell.
Yeah. And, you know, so when I fell so off, that's why I kept my helmet on, because I knew I'd fall in the river. It's just impossible to walk on that without falling. And I hit my head a few times, but the helmet was good. So that saved me from that. And then Monday afternoon, around about 3 o'clock, which was earlier than usual, I decided to stop for the day simply because there was sunlight for the first time. And I could try and dry my clothes before another bitterly cold night.
Yes,
Sleeping in that wind in wet clothes is just terrible. And I'd put my clothes on the rock, and I was scouring the bank to find a place to sleep. And I heard the helicopter. So I ran to the river, and it hovered above me for a while and flew away. And I thought, they must be looking forward and not down. So I've got to make a different plan.
So you were just drying your clothes? I assume you were naked? You hadn't started trying to light a fire or anything reflective with the sun?
Totally naked. So I think the sea rescue lady, when I got winched into the helicopter, probably got a bit than she bargained for. But I did make the point that I've been very cold for a few days. So.
Benefits of the job, yeah?
Yeah, you know. So totally naked, but simply because it was the only opportunity I had to dry my clothes.
Yeah.
And then what I didn't realize, and this is why I say, given the fullness of time, things will start making more sense, you know, is that the first helicopter that stopped on Monday afternoon had seen me. But they had no way of telling me they had seen me.
They don't have a big microphone like in the
there was a microphone on the helicopter railing, and I thought that, no, you know, they'll be able to communicate with me. So that's why I thought they haven't seen me and they've gone.
Yeah.
And what they do is, so this was a private helicopter, and then so what they do is they land.
That's Duran's helicopter.
That's correct. That's Duran and Mark. So they landed, and then they do not leave until they see, in inverted commas, the patient being winched into the rescue helicopter.
Okay.
Then they will leave. So unbeknownst to me, the helicopter on Monday afternoon that hovered above me had seen me, and then they sent the second one back. It got there a couple of hours later.
So you had 2 hours of thinking you'd been abandoned again?
Yeah, it was about 1.5 hours. Yeah, 1.5.
That's long enough for you to start wailing and
long enough to get despondent.
For sure.
Briefly, to allow it briefly, and then the second chopper came around, and when I saw them lowering the winch, when they opened the helicopter door and let the winch down, I don't think I even stopped waving then, because I still wasn't sure, and I certainly wasn't going to let this one get away. Yeah, and then
I think the report I got during the day, I think probably on Monday midday, maybe the first time you got seen, was that you weren't moving, but your arms were moving, and that's when I thought, oh my god, I hope there's not spinal trauma. So you were obviously okay. There was a miscommunication on social or on WhatsApp groups.
Yeah, no, I was fine in the superficial sense, and but I wouldn't stop waving because I was just so scared that it would go away.
Please don't go away. Yeah, sure.
And then they came down, and I just can't express the words in terms of the skill levels. And even when they were dropping the winch, I thought, you know, if that thing gets snagged in a tree, the chopper comes down.
Yeah.
And the way
you're all in it together. Yeah.
And then I thought, no, they must have a way of jettisoning the cable, because you're not going to lose the helicopter because a cable gets snagged. And then I thought, well, shit, what if they jettison it while I'm in it?
Yeah, now I'm going to die. Even though I got saved, I'm going to get dropped down into this river sort of strapped up in a bed.
Because everything was possible. And so they winched me in and off to Knysna hospital.
And were you, now, what do you do? I mean, you know, marathon runners are known to collapse on the finish line. Your body will get you to a certain point out of adrenaline and all sorts of death fighting instincts. What did you, when you got into the thing, did you pass out? Did you break down into tears? Did they give you hot chocolate and you gave them a hug? What happened there?
No, he wouldn't. The chopper pilot, not the chopper pilot. Unfortunately, didn't get to speak to the pilot because he was a cabin between the two.
Okay.
The guy who came down on the winch wouldn't let me hug him, either because I wasn't naked or
homophobic. So you don't think I mean, he probably thought you could have been in a stressed state and you might, like they do when people are drowning, you might actually hurt him. Yeah.
Exactly. He was just being professional. Yeah, so got winched up and off to Knysna and looked.
When did you get your first hug? Did you not get a hug in the plane? I mean, in the helicopter from the nurse or the?
No.
Because she saw you naked, she thought, "Oh, I better not play my cards."
No, she could do better than that. She knows it. No, they were just very professional, very friendly. You know,
gave you a blanket and something to eat or drink, I hope.
Blanket, something to drink that didn't taste like river water, although it gets into your pores, it gets ingrained. Yeah. It takes days to get out.
Yeah, were your feet all wrinkly and grey and all that?
Yeah, exactly. And that's when I discovered all the blood blisters.
And all the leeches and the ticks?
No, the leeches and ticks I was pulling off from day one.
As you were going, okay.
Yeah.
And then, so you get to the hospital and were you fine? Did you not collapse? I mean, you said you lost a lot of weight. You're not severely under.
It was a very, very, very astute question because the first time that I let the emotions go was in the hospital when I saw my family. I saw them, they were on the other side of the sliding door, and I was going to have some flippant comment ready for them. But that just turned into a flood of tears. And
okay, it just wasn't, the bravado just wasn't there.
There was no bravado. It's gone.
Sure.
And it's one of those moments you'll never forget as long as you live.
And the look in their faces.
Yeah, and just the hug and the
and were they all there? Was the whole family there, obviously on holiday?
All of them there. My family was amazing, and that's why I say I think sometimes they maybe had a tougher deal.
Well, the sound of your son's voice on that voice note that did the rounds was half like he was stoned, half like he was in tears, and half like he was laughing. You couldn't really work it out. He was just on zombie planet, I think, at that stage.
I haven't heard it, Thomas.
I'll send it to you. Yeah, he sounds, someone even wrote back, a doctor on my group, in fact, Mark Human, who's done Freedom Challenge and jumps out of airplanes and things. He said, "Woof, I wonder what that Eric's on," because he's probably on some sort of calming medicine because he just sounded so out of it, but so relieved and so happy. And wow, we could all feel the emotion in his voice.
Yeah, so, you know, if I was to summarize it, an amazingly positive human experience, given the benefit of 1 or 2 days hindsight.
Sure.
Obviously, a bit difficult to see that when you're in the moment. But the realization of, you know, the spirit of human endeavor and what people are prepared to do just for the sake of doing it because it's right. You know? And that's going to take a long time for me to understand the magnitude of that, because I'm still only getting anecdotal evidence, you know, from people who are bumping into and that kind of thing. And I had absolutely no idea it caused a bit of a media storm. And so I don't have the words to describe being home, you know, and getting into bed that night.
Deep appreciation.
Yeah, amazing.
So when you look back at what you went through, I don't know if you've had a good chance to look on maps at where you were at the time, as much as you know, how many days do you think you were from getting back to the path where the route crosses the river or something? I mean, how long could this have carried on potentially if the helicopter missed you?
I think another night and day.
Yeah.
Difficult to say because there's no ways I would have stopped while I was breathing. But the exhaustion was starting to creep in, the hypothermia, I couldn't really get rid of it anymore. I couldn't generate enough heat, you know, to warm up. And so one thing I forgot to mention, I lost the use of my tongue, which was also a bit scary. And I thought, maybe I'd been walked into a couple of spider webs, which I did do, and maybe ingested a couple, which I probably did do. But it wasn't that. And then I thought, look, it's got to be hypothermia, and it was, I think, because my tongue was as white as a piece of paper, but I couldn't speak.
And you couldn't talk to the helicopter crew or anybody, I'm sure, for a while. When did you get your voice back and your wits back?
So it would come and go. It started coming and going from Sunday. Okay. That's how cold I was from even Sunday morning. And yeah, so that was a novel experience, to put it mildly.
When did you notice your hair had turned white?
So I couldn't see my hair, but I could see my arm hairs and my leg hairs, and they were white.
Already in the forest?
Already, yeah.
Didn't it feel like I'm starting to see what death looks like?
So that didn't cross my mind, but the amount of stress that I was under, that definitely went through my mind. If my body was reacting like that, if my hair was just turning white in front of me. I thought, anyway, so yeah, and just a living experience, yeah.
Any takeouts for the rest of us?
Yeah, I guess so. My takeout is not don't cycle on your own.
We'll never stop doing that. All of us who have busy lives and enjoy the silence will probably never stop that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the guys who do it know why they do it, So the main takeout would be, if you're in the Knysna forest, don't get more than 2 meters away from your bike, because you'll lose it. If you're not on a path, you're going to lose your bike.
And stay on the brunt. I mean, we know Petrus the Brunt fairly well, and it does go through some pretty overgrown sections. So it's not like the Komsapad, which is a big sand road.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, and obviously potentially carrying something else. If you'd had one thing you could have been carrying, I suppose a flare, but even that probably in those
flare. It was a flare. It was a flare went through my mind often. Carry a flare. To make one concession to your solitary ride. Take a flare.
Okay, and maybe some electrolyte tablets or something in your.
Yeah, and the other thing, get rid of the old Garmin. Make sure you've got something with live satellite tracking. So in the bottom of I put my Garmin. I wedged it in a rock on Sunday around about lunchtime, because it was useless. It was flat. It was flooded. But I'd memorized the southerly location of where my Garmin stopped. So I knew that I'd done 8.8 Ks when I stopped the first night. I could see it on the Garmin, but I didn't have anything to plug it into, so no one else could see it. And I know the southerly location where it was 33, 57, 22.
Cheapest. Right, obviously a numbers man. Don't think any of us.
No, and then I memorized the easterly one, but then I lost it after about 6 hours. I don't know why I memorized it, but
yeah, well, that's survival, I guess. And I mean, there are obviously now satellite trackers you can buy. They're pretty expensive, but there are some safety devices out there.
So just to get that little anecdote through, I wedged it on a rock facing west, because I knew weather-wise that was the most likely search time.
Oh,
and it would glint in the sun, and the guys would see it,
I see. Hey, clever. Geez, so you really are a little girls in the making. But that obviously didn't play a role. I mean, they didn't see a glint. They only saw you.
They didn't see it. But anybody who flies along that river now will see that glint. That Garmin is still there. And so what got donated to the river? My Garmin, my watch,
your glasses,
my phone, my glasses, a water bottle.
You'd have to go back there at some stage, take your family, I don't know, do something, lay a plaque of survival and appreciation for life, because I mean, I'm sure that just listening to you is going to give a lot of us a deepened sense of gratitude, and yeah, I mean, every day to the max, because you never know when it could be your last one.
Yeah, so I mean, that's also another pretty astute comment, because I was walking along, again, walking not being the operative word, thinking, this doesn't happen to me.
Yeah, it's not me. This is not my story.
this is not my story. And yeah,
and it never is. It's always someone else.
always until it's you, because one day it will be you.
Shit, Alan.
In one form or another.
Mm.
So what would I do differently? I'd carry a live satellite tracker and a flare.
Okay.
Yeah. There's nothing as devastating as seeing a helicopter fly away when you're in your moment of need.
At the wit's end. Well, all I can say is we're really grateful for you being alive. It gives us all a great sense of human nature. There's so much doom and gloom and stories of people getting injured by others and all sorts of stuff. And when humans pull together for each other, for strangers, I've just had a call with a couple of the guys who led the manga. I don't know if you watched much of the manga this year. 2 guys, actually you wouldn't have, because you had started your journey when they were finishing.
Yeah, not this year. Yeah.
But the 2 of them went toe to toe and ended up with a huge deep bond. They rode the last 400 Ks together, and they're 25 years apart age-wise. One from Namibia, one from South Africa, but they've got a very deep bond that no one could ever break. It's almost like going to war together. And I think you've been to your own little war, going out into the edge, the true edge. And I think only once we've gone to the edge can we really recognize perhaps how mundane life can be and how safe and comfortable and how little we get to know ourselves until we get a little closer to the unknown.
Absolutely. And I still remember saying to the search and rescue, the paramedic team, the one member had 109.257 alpha printed on her helmet. So I said to her, 109.257 alpha, I'll go to war with you.
There you go. You were in Nam speak already. You were feeling it.
And then she said, where did you get that number from? So I said, it's on your helmet.
Sisters, you'll probably never forget that number. You forgot your GPS coordinate, but you're probably never going to forget that military number. Never
forget that number. Amazing. So just an amazing story of human endeavor. And
humans are good. 95% of humans are good, and all we hear is about the 5%.
If you've lost faith in humanity, go through what I went through for 3 days and see what people who you don't even know do for you.
It's amazing. Amen to that. What a great way to finish a very, very deep and insightful and conversation. And thanks for your time. I mean, you're still on the recovery. You are still beaten up and cut up and in a bad way. And I look forward to speaking to you when you're back on your bike and healthy and racing again. And thanks for giving us your experience shared vicariously. I think it's taught us all a lot, and we're really appreciative for that. Thank you, Alan.
Shot, Paul, and I appreciate that. It also helps a bit to talk about it, and and
at least you're owning it. You're not blaming anybody else. You from the start have not said it was any fault but your own. So
exactly, exactly.
Thank you, sir. Godspeed with your recovery. Enjoy your holiday, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thanks, Paul. I'll call you next time to ride Beatrice with me.
Yeah, I'm keen. All over it. With my tracker and my flare and all my bits and pieces.
Awesome. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Take care. Thank you.
You too, man, Paul.
Ciao.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.